Okay, we're going to begin in less than a minute from now. Good morning again, students. Welcome to the Beginners Hebrew Language Year 2 class. We're looking at a new lesson today. But if there be any questions on the test from last week, I will ask that shortly. We're going to start by going to God in prayer. Father in heaven, I pray that you will be with us as we begin our Hebrew language class. May you continue to open our understanding to understand what we are learning so that we may be able eventually to use it in our personal Bible study and to be able to learn more from what you are saying in the Holy Scriptures. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, now all of you did well in your Hebrew language test from last week. You all got 100% when you were looking at the topic of mapik. But is there anyone who would like to ask a question on any part of the test?
No, sir, it was all clear.
Israel?
All right, sir.
It's okay, sir. It's okay for me.
All right, Sister Hoop, are you there? All right, she will join us shortly. Or is she here? I think she might be here.
She's connected to the system.
Okay, Sister Hooper, do you have any question on the test? All right. We're going to continue then with lesson
Your
number.
mic is muted, Sister Hooper.
All right, Sister Hooper, you're muted. Could you unmute your mic? All right. We're going to move on with our lesson then. We're looking at 3 different grammatical things that have to do with our Hebrew language. Raphe, quiescent letters, and the gutturals. Each of these will be defined and illustrated. General objectives for this lesson are: 1, to examine raphe; 2, to examine quiescent letters; and 3, to examine the gutturals. The specific objectives are: number 1, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to define raphe. 2, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to describe what raphe looks like. Number 3, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to explain the effect of raphe on a letter that has dagesh forte in it. Number 4, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to define quiescent letters. Number 5, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to explain what happens to the consonant letter and the vowel underneath it when it quiesces. Number 6, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to explain when yod or yoth and waw do not quiesce. Number 7, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to define what guttural letters are. And 8, at the end of this lesson, the students will have been able to describe 4 characteristics of the guttural letters. Now, raphe is a Hebrew word that is translated into English as soft. Raphe equals soft. The definition of raphe is that it is a short horizontal line placed over a letter to indicate that the doubling of that letter with dagesh forte is left out. let me repeat the definition. The definition of rafe, apart from the fact that it means soft, is that it is a short horizontal line. See the horizontal line here, placed over a letter to indicate that the doubling of that letter with dagesh forte, see dagesh forte in this consonant, that the doubling of that letter with dagesh forte is left out. Notice dagesh forte is not there now. And the absence of the dagesh forte is indicated by this horizontal line over the consonant that had dagesh forte in it before. Now, why is this so? Why does this happen? This happens for smoother pronunciation. And here's the example. Here is the Hebrew verb bikeshu. You have beth, which is our B, short hirik, which is a dot under the beth, which is a short I sound, E. You have kof, which corresponds to our English Q. There is a dagesh forte in the middle or heart of the consonant, indicating that this consonant should be doubled or repeated. So instead of one kof, there are actually two kofs, but there is no need in Hebrew to write kof twice, only in English. We know that this kof is doubled because of the dagesh forte in it. So it is Q, Q. Underneath the kof is the simple schwa, and it is to be pronounced. It is a vocal schwa, and because it's not a regular vowel, it is written to the upper right hand of the kof. And you have shin. And then the last one is a vowel, a long vowel, shurek. So this is bik keshu, bik keshu, bik keshu, and it means they sought. However, if you see a line drawn over the consonant that has a dagesh forte in it, it means that it is rafe. And it is done so that the sound, the pronunciation can be soft, or it can be smoother. And so instead of having bikeshu, there is only one kof. There is only one Q. Notice only one Q. Up here, there were two Qs because of the dagesh forte. But the rafe, the horizontal line that is drawn over the kof, indicates that the dagesh forte has been removed. So we now have one Q instead of two Qs. We still have the vocal schwa, which is indicated by this short E that is written to the upper right hand of the Q. So it is now pronounced bi keshu. Instead of it being bik keshu, it is now bi keshu. They sought. So sometimes this happens where you are expecting a dagesh forte to be. Sometimes you will see this horizontal line, and it will indicate that a dagesh forte used to be there, but for smoother pronunciation, it has been taken away so that there is now a different pronunciation of the word. So the definition of rafe is that it is a short horizontal line placed over a letter to indicate that the doubling of that letter with dagesh forte is left out. So no more dagesh forte in this. This happens for smoother pronunciation. Okay, now, do you have any question about Rafe?
No, sir, I don't.
You may go ahead, sir.
Okay. All right, Sister Hooper also says that I can go on. Is that so?
Sure, Brother Dockland.
All right. We're now moving on to the second grammatical feature of this lesson. I normally just deal with one at a time, but because each of these is so short, I decided to group them together. So we're now dealing with what is called quiescent letters. Now I want you to know that Q-U-I-E is part of an English word, and I wonder if you can guess what word that is. I only have to add one more letter, and you will know what quiescent means. But Q-U-I-E just needs one more letter. Do you know what that letter is?
Letter T.
Letter T. Quiet. Quiescent letters are referring to quiet letters. And quiet letters means that they do not give out any sound. You do not pronounce that letter. If it is a quiescent letter, there are certain conditions in which the letter is going to become quiet, which means that you should not say the letter. You should not pronounce it. And we're going to learn what these letters are and when they become quiet. So quiescent letters are letters that are quiet. That is, they're not pronounced under certain conditions. Quiescent letters are consonants that are not pronounced under certain conditions, even though normally they are pronounced, and the vowel underneath those consonants that are not pronounced are also not pronounced. Let me repeat that part. So quiescent letters have the effect of not only being quiet themselves, but causing the vowel underneath them to become quiet also. So they not only keep quiet, but they tell the vowel underneath them to be quiet also. Okay, so it has the effect of silencing the vowel underneath those quiescent consonants. So quiescent letters are consonants that are not pronounced under certain conditions, even though normally they are pronounced. And the vowel underneath those consonants, that is underneath consonants like these, that are not pronounced are also not pronounced. Therefore, since they're not pronounced, they, quote, become quiet when the word is being spoken. Now, there are 4 quiescent letters in the Hebrew language: Aleph, He, Waw, Yod. Now, of all of them, Aleph is the most quiet letter because ordinarily we do not pronounce the Aleph. But there are 3 other letters that do become quiet under certain conditions. And as we get into the Hebrew more in later time, I will point out when these consonants become quiet. For example, when a preposition such as le, this is lamet, followed by the simple shwa. When a preposition such as le is put before the word Elohim, which means God, the E under the Aleph, which is this E, I haven't put the Aleph here, but if I were to represent the Aleph, it would look like one of the closed quotation marks. It would look like one of these closed quotation marks. But when le is put before Elohim, the E under the Aleph, which is this one, becomes silent and drops out. So the Aleph is not pronounced ordinarily, and the E drops out. The E is removed, it disappears, just leaving the Aleph. And the simple Shawa under the Lameth becomes long E, producing Le Lohim, meaning to God. Let me do that one again. The preposition le is a preposition that means to. Le is translated as to. It consists of the Lameth, which is our English L, and the simple Shawa is under the Lameth, one dot over the other. If this preposition is put before the Hebrew word Elohim, then the E under the Aleph becomes silent and drops out. That is, it disappears. It is not there anymore. And the E, the simple Shawa under the Lameth, becomes long E. That is, it becomes Sire, the long vowel Sire. That is like the E in they, 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 or the E in way, Weigh. It becomes long E, so le becomes le. And so what you have is another word being formed, le lohim. So the Aleph is not pronounced ordinarily. The original E in Elohim is removed because the Aleph has become quiet, and the vowel, the composite Shawa that is under the Aleph, which is actually called Katef Harid Segol, drops out. And the simple Shawa under the Lameth is lengthened to a Sire, the long vowel E, producing Le Lohim. So this Sire is not the same as this Katef Segol that was there originally. The Katef Segol, this composite Shawa, the combination of the simple Shawa and the Segol, has dropped out. So what has replaced it is the preposition Lameth Sire, or Le, and the part of the word that remains is L-O-H-I-M, L-O-H-I-M, Lelohim, meaning to God. So this is what happens when a letter becomes quiet. It not only affects the consonant, but it affects the vowel that is under the consonant. Both the consonant and the vowel under the consonant becomes quiet, and the vowel under the quiet letter not only becomes quiet, but it is actually removed. It is no longer there. And the preceding vowel is lengthened. Okay, let's see if there's an example here. So here it is. To God equals, originally it would be le, that is Lameth, with the Segol underneath it. Now, why is it I don't have the simple Shawa? But what's happened here is that there is a grammatical rule that says that when the simple Shawa, which is there originally under the Lameth, comes side by side with the composite Shawa, since two Shawas cannot be side by side together, then what has to happen in the case of a composite Shawa? is that the simple schwa under the lameth has to take the short vowel of the composite schwa. Now, the short vowel in this composite schwa is the short vowel segol, which looks like an upside down triangle, or as the Israelis would say, it looks like a cluster of grapes hanging down from the grapevine. That's what they identify segol as, a cluster of grapes hanging down from the grapevine. So, since two schwas cannot be together, you cannot have a simple schwa here remaining as it is. What is needed is that the segol that is part of the composite schwa has to be duplicated so that it goes over here also underneath the lameth. So now you have the lameth followed by a fully developed short vowel, le. So this is the first stage. You have le Elohim. Before aleph and before the katef segol, the composite schwa, the horrid segol becomes quiet. Before that ever happens, this is what it looks like in theory. So you have the simple schwa originally, which takes the segol of the composite schwa, and it is put over here also. Le Elohim. Le, and this is the aleph, like our apostrophe. And this is the segol of the katef segol. And this is the L, this is the O, the long O, this is the H, this is the long I, and this is the M, Le Elohim. But it can't stay like that. So I have an arrow drawn down. The aleph, which is normally silent, quiesces or becomes quiet even further. And when it becomes quiet because of the presence of this preposition, which is before it, what happens is that the katef segol, the composite schwa that was originally under the aleph, drops out. You don't see it here, do you? And because it drops out, a further change has to take place with the vowel that was here. It already changed from simple schwa to a segol, but a further change is needed. This segol, which is a short e sound, le, that's a short s sound, has to be lengthened to a sire, which are two horizontal dots. And this is a long e sound, a long vowel e sound, like the e in they, T-H-E-Y, or the e in way, W-E-I-G-H. And so it is now not only, it's not going to be pronounced as le, it is now going to be pronounced as lay. Notice I put the line over the e to indicate that it is a long vowel sound. I didn't put the line over the e here. I really should have put a semicircle, an upside down semicircle over this e to indicate that it is a short e sound. So this changes. The segol is lengthened to a sire. There is no composite schwa under the aleph, so I don't have to pronounce the composite schwa under the aleph now. I go straight past the aleph and whatever was underneath it. So I say lay, and I resume again right here. Lohim, lay, I bypass this, I don't pronounce it. Lay, lo, him, lay, lo, him. So this is an illustration of what happens to a quiescent letter under certain conditions. This particular condition is when you put a preposition to the front or at the beginning of the word it has the effect of causing the quiescent letter, which is the first letter in the word, to become quiet. And as a result of becoming quiet, the composite schwa that was underneath it disappears and therefore is not pronounced. And so you bypass this and you say lay, and you continue with lo-him, lay, lo-him. So notice that aleph is always silent or quiet. We don't pronounce aleph ordinarily. What changes is that katef segol, which is the simple schwa, and you have the segol to the left side of the simple schwa, making it a compound schwa or a composite schwa, called in Hebrew katef segol. Katef meaning, it's a Hebrew word meaning hurried. You hurry that pronunciation. What changes is that katef segol, hurried segol, is dropped. This is dropped. You don't see it there now. You don't pronounce this letter ordinarily. This drops when the preposition to is put before it, and it is also not spoken. It is dropped and not spoken. And the segol under lameth is lengthened to sire. The short e vowel is lengthened to its corresponding long e vowel. The short e vowel is lengthened to its corresponding long vowel. Okay, I think I need to mention something else before I move on. Let us just say that this was lameth and you had the simple schwa under the lameth, one dot over the other. And let us say this was another quiescent letter than aleph. And okay, I'm thinking here. Let us say you had another simple schwa under the first letter of a word, but the word is different. The rule still says that two simple schwas cannot be side by side. So what would have to happen is that this simple schwa remains. In this case, we're not dealing with a quiescent letter. I'm dealing with another rule. The simple schwa would remain under the first letter of the word. And what would happen is that the simple schwa here would be changed to a short vowel hirik, a short I sound, since the two simple schwas cannot be side by side. But anyway, if we come to that again in the Hebrew, I will mention it. I want to focus on the quiescent letters. So when the consonant is quiet, then whatever is under the consonant also becomes quiet and drops out. And so you don't pronounce this part of the word at all. You jump from the preposition lay to the rest of the word, lohim, lay, lohim, and you just forget about this first part of the word because it has become quiet. Quiescent means to become quiet. And the quiescent letters are consonants that are not pronounced under certain conditions. And the vowel underneath those consonants that are not pronounced are also not pronounced. Therefore, since they're not pronounced, they become quiet when the word is being spoken. And remember that aleph, he, waw, yod, or yoth are quiescent letters. They could become quiet under certain conditions so that you don't pronounce them and you don't pronounce the vowel underneath them.
Sir,
Yes.
can you please remind me why the segol, underneath lamed changes to sire?
Okay. Yes. Now, the segol, which is a short vowel E, called E, will lengthen to a sire, which is pronounced as the E in They, which has an A sound. And the reason for that is when Aleph becomes quiet, it is ordinarily quiet, but when it is especially quiet, let me put it that way, when it is especially quiet so that its quietness affects what is underneath it, in this case, a composite schwa. The composite schwa not only becomes quiet, but it disappears. And to compensate for the loss of the composite schwa, the preceding vowel has to be lengthened. That is a principle that applies in other cases as well.
Okay, sir.
In the case of guttural letters, when you have a guttural letter, you can't put a dagesh forte in the guttural letter. And to compensate for not being able to double the guttural letter, the preceding vowel that is immediately before the guttural letter has to be lengthened. Okay, so when there is the loss of a consonant or the loss of a vowel, some compensation has to be made for the loss of either the consonant or the composite schwa or the vowel. And it usually is in the lengthening of the preceding vowel. So the segol, the E, lengthens to an A. The short E lengthens to a long E. Yes.
Now, what about you said that underneath lamed, there was supposed to be a simple shiva.
Yeah.
But because two simple shivas cannot be placed, right after the other one.
Yes.
So there is something that happened, and this is the reason why we have segol. So can you give me that explanation again?
No problem. I'll start right here. When a preposition such as le, and this originally would be the simple schwa, one dot over the other,
Yes.
is put before Elohim, we find that the simple schwa under the lameth has to become long E. But I understand why you might be confused right now, because I didn't really do it in the order to really show you what happened. The order would be, there really needs to be another line up here. So what you'd have up here is another lameth, and you would have a simple schwa under the lameth. And you would have this remaining the same. Elohim, you have the composite schwa. So let us just pretend you have the word Elohim up here, and you have the lameth with the simple schwa, one dot over the other above this. The rule says that two schwas cannot be together side by side. And because of that, the simple schwa has to drop out. So the lameth loses the simple schwa. And the rule also says that if it is a composite schwa, the preposition will take the short vowel that is in the composite schwa. And since the short vowel in this composite schwa is segol, then the simple schwa that was here originally will be replaced by the segol. Okay, so that is what happens.
Yes.
Two schwas cannot be side by side. And when that happens, certain changes have to take place. So the lameth takes the vowel of the first consonant in the word.
Okay, sir.
And
Yeah.
there's a further lengthening. When this drops out, when the composite schwa drops out, as you don't see it here, do you?
No, sir.
When it drops out, there is a further adjustment that has to be made. This segol must now be lengthened. So it's a series of lengthening.
Yes, sir.
Originally, you had the simple schwa under the lameth, and it, the simple schwa is really, at best, when it is pronounced, it is like a half vowel, like the E in au revoir, or the E in because in English. Now,
Yes,
it is lengthened so that it has a full vowel, not a half vowel anymore, but a full vowel, segol. And because of the removal of the composite schwa, then the segol is further lengthened. This vowel is further lengthened to its long vowel form. So the E is lengthened to A, Lelohim.
yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes. So what happened here is I skipped out a step and I went straight over, actually mixed things up. I put the simple schwa under the lameth, becomes long E. So I went straight from the simple schwa to the long E. That was the problem. I went straight from the simple schwa, didn't go through this stage, only showed this stage on the next slide, went straight from the simple schwa, which is a quick, short E sound, didn't mention the segol, and went straight to the long E sound. But that's really what happened. Those are the changes that took place. Any other question?
No, sir.
Okay, let's move on to the guttural letters. Okay, now I'm dealing not only with the guttural letters, but with resh. Okay, so what I say about the guttural letters applies also to another letter in the Hebrew alphabet called resh. So we're looking at the guttural letters and resh. Aleph, He, Keth, Ayin are guttural letters. That is, letters pronounced in the throat. So guttural letters are consonants in the Hebrew alphabet that are pronounced to the back of the throat or near to the throat. What is said about Aleph, He, Keth, Ayin? Notice I'm reading from right to left. So that's why I'm doing it this way, because that's the way the Hebrew reads the language. What is said about Aleph, He, Keth, Ayin also applies to resh. They cannot be doubled. None of these letters can be doubled. And that means, therefore, you can't put the dot in these letters. Now, remember, last week you had a test on Mapik, but the dot that you saw in He was not a dagesh forte, nor was it a dagesh lene. The dot that you saw did not double the He. So what I'm saying here now does not refer to Mapik. Mapik comes into the He, but the dagesh forte does not come into any of these, because it cannot double any of these letters. You see, when you put dagesh forte in a letter, in a consonant, ordinarily it causes that letter to be doubled. And because these letters cannot be doubled, it cannot take dagesh forte in them. So they cannot be doubled, and therefore do not take dagesh forte. Number 3, the guttural letters take composite schwa instead of simple vocal schwa. Now, this is why when we looked at the word Elohim, Aleph, notice, let me find my pointer. Notice that this is a guttural letter, and it didn't simply have the simple schwa underneath it, because the guttural letters cannot take merely a simple schwa. It needs a composite or compound schwa consisting of the simple schwa and a vowel to the left of it. And this is the horrid segol, katef segol, horrid segol. So the guttural letters cannot take a simple schwa, they take a composite or compound schwa, a mixture of the simple schwa and a vowel to the left of the simple schwa. So that's a feature of the guttural letters. They take composite schwa. Each of these, if they have any schwa under it, it will have to be a composite schwa, not a simple schwa. Other consonants in the alphabet can take the simple schwa, but if any of these consonants don't have a vowel underneath them, they cannot take a simple schwa. They have to take a compound or composite schwa. Another feature about the guttural letters and resh is that they prefer the vowel pathak, that is this short horizontal line that is below the line of your paper. This short horizontal line that is below the line of your paper is the short vowel pathak, pronounced as a, as in bat, or a, as in at. So these letters prefer to have the vowel pathak under them. They also prefer to have the vowel pathak before them. And when we're studying different verbs that have the guttural letters in them, we will see that they do have the effect to change the spelling of that verb from how it is regularly spelt, because they attract either a pathak under them or a pathak before them. Number 5, they take a pathak under the guttural letter at the end of a word. So let us say that ayin is at the end of a verb. You will find that under ayin, there will be the vowel pathak. Okay, we will learn about that later on, not this trimester. So they take a pathak under the guttural letter at the end of a word. So when you have ayin coming at the end of a word, you will find the pathak underneath it. And that is also true if the ayin or some other guttural letter is preceded by a full accented vowel. Okay, there is a vowel before it that has the accent. Okay, and the full accented vowel, I think that refers to the long vowels, not the short vowels. Okay, so it is like the wow, which forms our shurek, or our wow that forms the holem, the long form of the holem, the long O. So when you have that, and you have the arrowhead representing the accent, and that is immediately before any of these consonants, if these consonants come at the end of a word, it will take a pathak underneath it. And in such a case, it is called in the Hebrew grammar a furtive pathak. Furtive is spelt F-U-R-T-I-V-E. furtive pathak means that it is a pathak that is at the end of a word under the last consonant, and the last consonant is a guttural. Let me go through this again. So you have 4 guttural letters, Aleph, He, Keth, Ayin. And you also have Resh. These letters are called guttural because they're pronounced at the back of the throat or near to the throat. These guttural letters cannot be doubled, so they can't take any dagesh forte in them. If they are without any vowel underneath them, they can't take a simple shawa, one dot over the other. They will need to take a composite shawa under them. They also prefer the vowel pathak, either under them or before them. And they take a pathak under the guttural letter when the guttural letter is at the end of a word, which is immediately preceded by a long vowel that has the accent, the arrowhead, over it. Or any question over the guttural letters and resh?
No, sir.
Okay. So let me just briefly recap. Today we have looked at Rafe. And Rafe means soft, meaning that the pronunciation is soft, it's smooth, and it indicates that the dagesh forte has been taken out of a consonant. Like here is a consonant ko. It has the dagesh forte in it. And it means that the kof, which is our Q in English, is doubled or repeated. Q, Q. But when the Rafe is written or drawn over the consonant that had the dagesh forte in it, the dagesh forte has to be taken out of it. So there is no effect of doubling the kof or doubling the Q. There's only one Q now. And this is done for a smoother pronunciation. We looked at quiescent letters, which means letters that become quiet. And they become so quiet that even the vowel or the shawa or the composite shawa under it is removed and not pronounced. This was illustrated by the condition of having the preposition lameth come before a word, Elohim, and notice that the composite shawa drops out, and this section of the word is not pronounced, for we go from the preposition straight to the rest of the word lohim, le lohim, le lohim. This part is not pronounced at all. So it's no longer le Elohim, it now is le lohim. So the aleph is always silent. What changes is that the katef segol, the composite shawa that was there, drops out, it is not spoken, and the segol under the lameth is lengthened to sire. The short E is lengthened to long E. And we have looked at the characteristics of guttural letters. They're pronounced near to the throat or to the back of near to the back of the vocal cavity, near to the back of where the throat is. They cannot be doubled, so they don't take dagesh forte. If they don't have a vowel underneath them, they will take a composite shawa, not a simple shawa. They prefer the vowel pathak under them and even before them. And if there is a word that ends with a guttural letter, like an ayin or a keth, for example, and immediately before the last letter of the word, there is a full vowel that is a vowel like wow, that can be a shurek, a long U, or a whole M, a long O, and there is the arrowhead over it, which symbolizes that the syllable next to the last syllable is to be stressed. Then it means that the last letter of the word, which is a guttural, must have a pathak underneath it. And normally, the last letter of a word does not have a vowel underneath it. But this is a special rule governing guttural letters. If it is a guttural letter that is at the end of a word, and there is a full vowel, like a wow, that is before it, then it will take a pathak underneath it, and that is called in the Hebrew grammar furtive pathak, not simply a pathak, but furtive pathak, meaning that the pathak is under the last guttural letter of a word. Okay, now, do you have any further questions on what we have covered in this lesson?
No, sir, I don't.
All right, now what I want you to do, because the different parts of this grammar were short, I had to put them together into one lesson. Ordinarily, if it is long, like the Shua section was long, the Dagesh Leni was long, the Dagesh 40 was long, I just leave it by itself. What I want you to do for this lesson then is to study Rafeh, Quiescent Letters, and the Guttural Letters and Resh, just those few pages there, in preparation for a test on this lesson next week.
All right.
Okay, so that is your assignment. You will have a test on lesson 17, and I will send this to you later on today. What happened last week Friday, is that I was so busy. I had to prepare for evening classes because Brother Kidu was not feeling well, and he asked me to fill in for him with a Jamaican class and a US class following it. I was so busy getting myself ready that it wasn't until after those evening classes were finished that I had the time to send the lessons that I had promised last Friday to send to you at an earlier time. So you might have wondered why you didn't get your lessons. It is because of that. All right, but I will send this to you as early as I can. All right, so you can look for it today or this evening, but hopefully earlier on today, so you can have it there to study. Okay, we're going to end at this time. So take care. I will see you later.
All right.
All right.